Okay, so you want to know what my closing routine is like, and my closing routine, like the closing routine, like the final settlement statement, doing the final walkthrough, and then going to closing. That's the routine that I'm talking about, not like closing a sale, but closing a transaction. That's what this video is all about today. So if that's what you want to learn a little bit about, maybe there's a couple nuggets that I do that you can implement in your own business that will help your business be a lot smoother closing, then stick around, because that's what I'm getting ready to teach you. If you're new to the channel, my name's Josh Barnett. I'm a real estate broker over 15 years. I'm not like the office broker. I have a broker's associate license because at one time I had my own office. I've been at a small mom and pop office. I've been at a small independent office, a large independent office. I've been at a franchise, and like I just said, I've had my own office. And I take all of that experience, all that life's lessons in real estate, and I put them out there on this channel. So you can take my wins, apply them to your business, and hopefully you can get some wins too. Also, I'm getting calls, texts, and emails and Zoom calls from brokers, team leaders, and agents just like you on a weekly basis to ask me more about how eXp Realty is obsessed with agent success. And I absolutely love having those conversations with those broker owners, team leaders, and agents just like you. So if you're kicking around the idea of moving offices, join eXp Realty with me. I'd be so happy to chat with you about that next step in your real estate career. Now, without further ado, let's get today's video. The highlights of the closing process. All right. So the closing process for me personally starts about 5 business days out. 5 business days out from closing. So we've already done everything else that's led up to this point. Now we're 5 business days from closing. So typically the prior Friday, because the majority of your closings happen on Fridays. So what I do is I just, with all my weekly check-ins on all my escrows, I check in with the title company and I CC the customer, and I check in with the bank and I CC the customer. And that's one email. That's one email I send to the title company, send to the bank, send to the customer. I CC myself and I CC the office file on that, because a lot of your electronic file systems, they give you emails that you can CC the office file on, so the office has a log of every single one of your emails. So that's what I do. And I send the email out basically, hey guys, we're 1 business week away from closing. I just wanted to check in with everyone and see if there's any questions I can answer. So that's all. We're 1 business week away from closing. Just wanted to check in with everyone and see if there's any questions or anything needed on my end or eXp Realty's end that I can get for you at this point. And the title company and the banker typically say no. And then we'll go into that later. And then I put the title company's name, I underline and bold it, and then I hit 1 period. If you are balanced with the lender, may I please have a copy of the final settlement statement to go over with Mr. and Mrs. such and such. Also, please let me know if anything is needed from Mr. and Mrs. such and such, or myself, or my office. That way I can get it to you before closing. So those are the 2 questions that I sent to the title company. Then I enter down, and I do the lender's name, underline, bold, and I put, is anything needed from Mr. and Mrs. such and such or myself at this time? Have the instructions been, number 2, have the instructions been sent to title? Number 3, if you have balanced with title, please advise. And then also, number 4, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Just something like that. And then I go down another one and I put Mr. and Mrs. such and such. Are there any questions at this time? We're getting so close to closing on your new home, or if it's land, property. And then I also put, don't forget to contact these local service providers to establish utilities. You'll send them the trash company, you'll send them the electric company, the gas company, internet providers in the area. You'll send them stuff like that. And you send that email out 5 business days before closing. That way they've got it, and the title company and the lender all know that you want the settlement statement. That's the most important part. And then typically And so that's what I do 5 days before closing. The 3 days before closing, I schedule the final walkthrough with the buyers, because you want to do the final walkthrough right before closing, especially if it's tornado season in Oklahoma. You definitely want to do it right before closing, because once it's closed, it's closed. So you want to make sure that they are 100% happy and satisfied with that property right before closing. So I'll schedule the final walkthrough with them, and this is 3 days before closing. And then I'll also send them the final settlement statement, because I typically receive that from the title company. And then I'll reiterate the utility companies, and I'll also tell them about the local post office where they can update their driver's licenses and their voter registration. And then I'll also tell them about any local like diners or stuff like that, just to keep adding value. You're always wanting to add value to the transaction. If you give, people will be a lot easier to work with. Plus, they'll be like, wow, this guy was so informative during the whole process. I absolutely enjoyed working with him. And that's what you want. You want to earn referrals. You want them to be happy, and you want to earn their referrals. So that's 3 days before closing. And then 1 day before closing, you follow up with the confirmed final walkthrough time. You also going to follow up on the cashier's check. Oh yeah, when you send them the final settlement statement, you give them the rundown. This is what I had it estimated at. This is what they actually turned out to be. And then those funds need to be in a cashier's check or a money order made payable to the title company. So put that in that email too that we just talked about. And now coming back to the day before closing, you follow up with them and make sure we're good for the final walkthrough on the following day. You make sure that they've got the cashier's check, and you make sure that they're bringing government issued IDs to closing. So you make sure those 3 things are still on board, and make sure those 3 things are still going. Also verify with them that they had a chance to initiate utilities in their name, so that when they move in, they're not moving into a house without utilities, or moving on to a property without utilities. So you just double check. So five business days out, you're prepping them, you're framing the whole situation. And then on 3 days out, you're prepping them, framing the whole situation, and checking in. One day before closing, you're doing it all over again. You're prepping them, you're framing them, making sure that everything's set up so that they have the smooth walkthrough, smooth utility initiation, smooth closing, so that the only thing they're stressing is actually moving on to the property. So that is what you do. And then of course, you go to the final walkthrough. And so in the final walkthrough, what you're looking for at the final walkthrough is you're just making sure like anything that's been agreed upon in the contract is still there. That's the biggest part of it. You want it all to still be there. You want to make sure that they didn't move anything out and destroy a piece of trim work or something like that, because then you have to negotiate stuff like that at the table, and it's really frustrating. But you really, really want to make sure that they are 100% happy with the house, because they're going to close on it, and you're there to reaffirm their decision. As a salesman, as a saleswoman, you're always there reaffirming their decision. You're like, God, this is such a great house. Wow, this is such a great property. Man, you're going to have so much fun fishing in that pond. You're going to have so much fun building a tree fort on this property. Wow, you'll have so much fun cooking in that kitchen, all the upcoming feasts. You're reaffirming their decision, because you, as a salesman, as a saleswoman, you're constantly closing. You're constantly helping that person be excited about their decision. That's the number one job about being a salesperson. So on the final walkthrough, you're just making sure everything's good, everything is as it was when it was contracted, and always try to show up to that final walkthrough a little bit early, especially if it's a residential property, and make sure you're bringing your wireless vacuum with you, because it never hurts. Because sometimes 50% of the time when sellers move out, they didn't do the basic vacuum and sweep. They didn't do that. So if you show up 10-15 minutes early, you can do that, and you can make that purchasing decision a whole lot better. You can make that final walkthrough a whole lot smoother situation, because you're a salesman, you're a saleswoman. It's your job to create the environment, and you want a good environment. You don't want them to walk in the house and it be covered in dust bunnies, the countertops be dirty. You bring a rag, you wipe off the countertops, you bring your electric vacuum, you vacuum everything up real quick to make that final walkthrough situation really, really, really on point. Then once the final walkthrough is done, if you have to negotiate anything, you immediately get on the phone, start negotiating that with the other agent, so you guys can come to some sort of agreement before closing. Then you get to closing, and typically the buyer goes in first, buyer signs all their docs, buyer comes out, seller goes in, seller signs all their docs. You make that situation a super awesome situation. Even if you had to negotiate something, you still make that situation a super awesome situation, because a lot of times sellers and buyers, they don't understand what they were and weren't supposed to do. Like if the seller took the drapes, that in the Oklahoma real estate contract, the drapes are not supposed to go. So if they took the drapes, you gotta figure out how much new drapes cost, or you got to get the old drapes back there. So you got to figure that out, but also keep everyone pleasant, everyone happy throughout the whole process. So smiling is always a great asset as a salesperson, and then look at people directly in the eye with open hearts when you're talking to them. Like it might not be their fault. They might not have known that they weren't supposed to take the drapes. Do not be negative. Don't be mean. Be nice to everyone. Work it out. You can work it out. The buyer wants to buy the house. The seller wants to sell the house. Just be pleasant. And when you walk that buyer into the title company, because they're going to typically follow you from the final walkthrough to the title company, you open up, you wait by that door, you open it for them, you introduce them to the agents, introduce them to the staff, you offer them refreshments, you make the whole experience amazing. And then once everybody signs, you exchange keys, you exchange addresses if you need to for missed mail and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. That's what you do. So that, in a nutshell, is how I handle my closings of the transaction. It starts about 5 business days before the transaction. You're just constantly framing and reaffirming and confirming schedules, the final walkthrough, the utilities, the number needed for the cashier's check, the money order, the IDs. You're going and doing the final walkthrough. You're having to negotiate any last minute items that might have came up on the final walkthrough. It's normal. That does happen sometimes. You're going to the final walkthrough early and doing a quick wipe down of the countertops and vacuum if you have to. Sometimes you don't have to, sometimes you do. And then you're going to closing being super pleasant the whole time, being super excited for both parties because they're both doing a huge thing and you were able to be a part of it, and you're just making a smooth closing. Once it's all closed and said and done, walk the people to the car, thank them for the business, go back to the title company, thank them for how they handled the transaction, all the help they did. And then, of course, if you're XP Realty, I always carry self-addressed, I always carry envelopes. I carry envelopes in case the title company doesn't mail the check to eXp Realty. I always have stamped envelopes with my return address on it, and then I just fill it out and I mail that to eXp Realty myself. So if you do that, make sure to get a copy of the settlement statement too, because it helps the accounting department to have the check and the settlement statement. And then look at the DA. On the DA that you have at eXp Realty, it has a transaction ID. Make sure to write that great big on the not the check itself, but the other parts of the check, the parts of the check where it's where they tear it off and throw it away. Write the transaction ID on that great big too. That way it makes it easy for the accountants to put that in the right transaction ID and get it settled out. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed today's video, if you found some nuggets from today's video, give it a thumbs up, give it a big thumbs up. That way other agents can hear those cool nuggets too on how I handle the closing process of my transactions. As always, guys, my name is Josh Barnett. I made this channel so that you guys can win from all of my stories, and that you're able to be successful real estate agents. I don't want anyone to fail. The failure rate in real estate is way too great. This job is a people business. It's a service industry. You can absolutely excel at it if you just give it a little bit of time and you follow this channel. If you have any questions about real estate business to the next level, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. Let's book an appointment so I can show you how eXp Realty is absolutely obsessed with agent success. A couple other videos are popping up right here that you might be interested in. Click on them, you might learn something else. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Oh man, I just ran over an armadillo. Like, I didn't hit it, I just drove over the top of it. That, I've got an amazing 36 mile to the gallon car. So anytime I drive over roadkill, it always scares the crap out of me that it's gonna bust something on my car. But I put the lender's name in bold and italics And then I put, is anything